Hello, everyone. Good evening to all of you. We are thrilled to have all of you today. This is our second session of this webinar series, SheLeadsTech. And if I give you a small introduction about SheLeadsTech, this is an initiative by ISACA, and it empowers, elevates, and equips women in technology and leadership roles to thrive and lead with confidence. Launched by ISACA, an international professional association focused on IT governance, SheLeadsTech team aims to close the gender gap in technology by creating a strong network of support, resources, mentorship, and opportunities for women at all career stages. So, like I said before, this is our second session, and there's a small video that we can watch now before I proceed to discuss the topic and introduce our speaker today. Okay, so the topic for today is empowering women in tech, the role of IT governance in building trust, accountability, and career growth. So in today's fast evolving digital world, IT governance is not just a framework of policies. It's a strategic enabler. It ensures transparency, fosters ethical decision making, and drives responsible innovation. But beyond systems and compliance, governance creates something even more powerful. That's trust. And with trust comes opportunity. For women in tech, this trust lays the foundation for visibility, leadership, and influence. When governance is strong, we all know, we all can be equipped to step up, speak up, and lead with confidence. So, without much ado, let me introduce our trailblazing speaker this evening. Jenny Tan is currently leading a global internal audit practice, including IT audit, with a global real estate fund management MNC. Jenny is a former PwC risk assurance partner, where she led the IT audit and advisory and business resilient practices. She was PwC Singapore CIO and DPO. Jenny is a winner in Education 2.0 Excellence Award 2024, the Cybersecurity Award 2023, 2022 Top Woman in Security, SG and ASEAN, 2022 Women Program of the Year Award, Asia, 2021 Women in IT Outstanding Contribution Award, Asia, and 2021 SG 100 Women in Tech recipient. She has also received the Top 20 Cybersecurity Women in Singapore 2020 award. Outside of work, Jenny volunteers heavily in the technology community space, where she actively promotes technology, including cyber awareness and adoption to both business and IT professionals and organizations. She is currently the immediate past president of ISACA SG Chapter. Jenny spearheaded the ISACA SheLeadsTech program in Singapore in 2019 and has since framed the program as a cross-border female leadership experience and knowledge sharing platform. She has also successfully launched a 2021 SLT mentorship program with dedicated mentor-mentee engagements to guide the career development of our SLT members accordingly. Jenny has also pioneered the conversion program to achieve private, public, non-profit objectives of bringing more women into the tech workforce. Feedback on both programs were excellent. Her effort paid off as she is recognized by ISACA Global as one of the 2021 Outstanding Chapter Leader Award global recipients, and SLT program has also won her 2 Ally of the Year 2002. That is Best Program International, Best Contributor Asia. Minister for Communications and Information, Josephine Teo, has also recently commended the conversion program at the Cybersecurity Awards 2022 event. Jenny was also a finalist for Advocacy of the Year with the Women in IT Asia 2023 award, and as the finalist in the National Do Good Award 2024 by NVPC with her cyber safety awareness volunteering effort. Jenny graduated with several degrees, master's degree and postgraduate diplomas in both IT and business faculties. And she's currently a PhD candidate with Singapore Management University. She's currently serving as the Audit Committee member of Singapore University of Technology and Design, National Institute of Early Childhood Development, and as a board member, Cum Finance Committee member with School of the Arts. Jenny also serves on ISACA's Artificial Intelligence Task Force AI Solutions Subcommittee and CSA Professionalization Advisory Group. Jenny is also SMU's adjunct professor with the accounting faculty. So let me invite Jenny to take us through this discussion today. And I have one small invitation to all of you who are joining us today. If you have any questions, you may all post it on the Q&A or the chat box that is available here. You may do so during the discussion or maybe after Jenny's presentation, whichever that is feasible and whichever way you like. Okay, so over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Ruandi. So just give me a second. I just share my slides and we can proceed. Okay, Ruandi, everything's fine, right? The screen?
Yes, we can see, Jenny.
All right, great. So thank you, Ruandi, for the wonderful introduction. Too long introduction about myself. I'm not so used to listening to people introducing myself, but I'm glad to be on this platform. And of course, I need to start with, first of all, thank you everybody for being here, because you take away your personal time to attend this session. So it's really a great pleasure to be able to speak on this platform. So at my end, I'm now currently in Singapore, not flying, at home doing this webinar. We are around 8:30 now. Yeah. It's nighttime, so I'm not so sure where you are from. So that's why I put down, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, perhaps. Yeah. In this part of the introduction. Now, on the screen, you get to see that I have indicated SLTSG. That's our SheLeadsTech Singapore program. Why did I put a plus self-leadership there? Just wanted to take the opportunity that I'm the founder of Singapore SheLeadsTech, and we are into our 6th year, and we are growing very strong in terms of our program. And as you can see, SheLeadsTech has 3 purposes, right? To engage, empower, and to elevate the women into the tech workforce. But in Singapore, I did something extra, which I put in place self-leadership. So that's why here I've indicated self-leadership. Reason is very simple. Every one of us, like for instance, in Singapore, we don't have the poverty gap. So what we have is mainly women who are not as confident to step into the tech workforce. So with this self-leadership, I encourage more women, regardless of your rank, your position. You just need to have the courage and confidence to be able to represent yourself in the area of tech work that you're working on. So in that case, I can lend some limelight, spotlight to everyone in the whole ecosystem to share about and to care about all these cyber-related or tech-related matters. So this is just a very brief introduction about what SheLeadsTech in Singapore is doing. Hopefully it can give some extra ideas to Sri Lanka to take it on after this session. So for our topic today, it's about IT governance, but IT governance always is something that is behind in the background that doesn't gain any attention from the senior management, as well as we are always not given credit if everything goes on right. But when something went wrong, we are always the finger-pointed party. So in this part of the discussion or the presentation that I'm going to make today, I just wanted to let you know that I won't be touching any topic about AI, because to me it's a bit overwhelming already, as in overloaded as well. Too much talk about that. I like this topic a lot when it was proposed to me, is because it is a very good time that every one of us take a step back and rethink what are we doing, because we are in a hurry to ride along the technology wave, and yet, we never take a pause to consider whether individually or organization-wise, are we in the right direction? So for this topic, it is a soft topic, I would call it, but it is applicable to individual, to organization, regardless what kind of technology tools you're leveraging on, okay? So back to basics. What is IT governance? Recently, I was conducting a risk workshop for my colleagues. More than 100 of the IT colleagues attended the workshop. And when I asked them about what is IT governance, people raised their hand and just mentioned about, policy and procedures. So if IT governance is so straightforward, and if it is just policy and procedures, why can't organization do it well? And why can't individual handle it well, right? So I wanted to take this opportunity to reiterate the definition of what IT governance is all about. Definitely, governance is a process, is a framework, and it is what the definition on the screen that you have seen about GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, focusing on controlling IT infrastructure, as well as aligning IT expenditure with enterprise strategic objectives and effectively managing IT-related risk. So it is a combination of many things and not just IT policy and procedures. And the IT policy and procedures is actually the tool that is used to execute governance, right? So on the screen, you get to see, I put the word how. So people tend to intermingle the definition and the deliverables and tools together, but actually they are separate. So through frameworks, through policies and procedures, through the investment that we made, supporting our business objectives, delivering value, etc. These are the tools that's being leveraged to execute the governance that we believe in. And governance is not just about the tools alone as well, because as a risk professional, as an auditor, you will have to look at governance also from the structural perspective. So it's not just about controls, right? So first of all, you have to look at how your governance framework procedures, are they aligning to the business objectives? How can you, from this governance being carried out within an organization, provide some form of assurance to within board members or your regulators, etc.? And how do you deal with agility where technology evolved so fast? And lastly, accountability as well. So we have to look at the roles and responsibilities, the organization structure within the organization team that handles IT governance. You can't just depend on the specific output controls. So that's why when we look at IT governance, you really have to understand from a big picture perspective. It's just unfortunate that when it comes to implementation, people and organizations tend to narrow it. And that's why many practitioners, if you don't take a step back, like attending webinars like this one or others, you tend to be too focused onto your daily execution. You may forget about the big picture. Okay. So why IT governance matters today? I'm sure you're aware, but I just like to reiterate again. So we all know that we are now living in a digital first world. So IT governance is actually core enabler. A core enabler to delivering business strategy, ensuring that innovation is within the purview of risk management. I think everyone needs to be very clear that we need to take responsibility onto ourselves. It is not just the IT governance team or not just the risk team that will handle this responsibility. So without a good IT governance framework and structure, even the best technology investments will become your worst technology decisions with cost overruns, compliance failures, and data breaches. Now, research has shown that a lot of IT-related projects, be it during the digitalization process or be it, now even with the AI coming into the transformation disruption process, research has shown that if you don't put in place proper IT governance over it, the post-implementation cost to the organization is almost 60% of the whole project cost. And it is often not budgeted for. So why should you care? Because it brings clarity into this whole ecosystem. It helps you to build trust when you have governance in place. And at the same time, I keep stressing about the word accountability. So we can't say that, we just do it, we just deliver, and nobody is responsible over it. I think that is not what governance is all about. So with a very clear picture about how this whole thing works, it helps to make sure the organization can overcome challenges much better. Now, we all also know that trust is the currency of digital business. And with this trust thing, ISACA HQ has actually developed a digital trust program and framework to deal with different types of technology that you need to handle every day. Now, this slide is adapted from the digital trust framework, and it defines digital trust as the confidence in the integrity of the relationships, interactions, as well as transactions. So here they are very clear. It's talking about confidence, integrity, in what? In our relationships with all stakeholders, be it the providers, the consumers, or the practitioners. Now, this whole thing is our ecosystem, and we can only achieve digital trust if we equip people with the ability to do so, and also influence stakeholders to trust the whole digital ecosystem well, being able to support the formation of a either a CISO team or a good information security team to handle the day in, day out digital challenges. So this is something that the ISACA HQ, they have been trying to advocate about this framework. Now, putting ISACA aside, I believe every one of us needs this digital trust because we can't live without our mobile phones nowadays. We can't live and work with our laptop nowadays. You can imagine the days were gone when, when we talk about business continuity planning, BCP, what's the fallback? Manual. But in today's age and context, how do you get back to manual processes when all the manual processes were being made obsolete most of the time? You don't even have, your receipt in paper form anymore. So everything is through iPad or mobile ordering. So a lot of things have evolved, and that's why we can't rewind and unwind all these digital actions carried out. We have to only move forward. And in order to move forward, we really need to make sure systems can trust systems, data transferred can be trusted and not leaked. All these are built on the basis of trust. Now, the whole digital trustworthy ecosystem is actually very straightforward in according to the ISACA DTEF. It falls into these 6 pillars. I like to use this framework to talk about the 6 items is because it's very simplified. You don't have to overthink or think too much, or you don't want to miss out on all these pillars that will help us and guide us in our daily work to mitigate risk. So this particular slide is very easy to understand. How do we ensure that our whole digital ecosystem it's protected, it's reliable in that sense. So first of all, quality. What kind of quality are we talking about? All aspects, right? We want quality systems, we want quality data, we want quality service providers, we want quality end users. I mean, all these come back to the initial question: how do we account for quality? How do we ensure quality? Through recruitment, through policies and procedures, through a lot of testing to make sure that everything is being managed according to standards. So the quality component is actually very important to ensure a trustworthy ecosystem. Then we moved on to security and privacy. Security and privacy is very clear. It is talking about, if you need to protect the data, protect it at rest or in motion, or, who has access to the data. Have you performed data classification? Who has the rights to access certain things? So these are the basic questions you can ask about security and privacy. Reliability, what is the uptime performance? And every time when you generate a query, the same query gives you the same output. Just like when we write a prompt in any of the generative AI platform, every time the same question gives you different output. Is that considered reliable? So these are questions that you have to ask when you deal with systems, when you deal with systems output. Now, ethics and integrity. This one comes back to the human side. How do you advocate about all these, reliability, the confidentiality, the importance of all cybersecurity principles? How do you advocate that to your colleagues and within the ecosystem? And from a system side, if you are coding them, are you sure that you practice good practices such that there is no malicious codes being put into the system? How do you ensure that? So these are also areas of questions that you have to ask yourself nowadays in this era. Transparency and honesty and confidence, these two are pretty self-explanatory. Definitely with the first 4 dealt with, the 5th and the 6th will eventually easier to achieve. Now, coming to accountability, who is responsible for what? A lot of times in organizations, we thought that we knew, but when it comes down to audit, when we ask the questions, who is responsible for this system, who is responsible for this workflow, etc., many a times the auditees don't know. Yeah, they do those things every day, but when it comes to accountability, no one will raise their hand. So this is a red alert for any one of you if you're in such a situation, to highlight to the management or to the auditees that the importance of structure and making sure that all the roles and responsibilities are clearly spelled out, because it cannot be everyone's responsible. But what if there's a breach? Does it mean that the breach is so serious enough to terminate everyone? How do you ensure business continuity then? So there is ambiguity. That means it's not easy to account for. So I will encourage you to talk to the stakeholders to make sure that all these structural things, roles and responsibilities are clearly spelled out. And all these has also need to be communicated to the colleague, right, who is responsible for them, because no one likes to be given any blame, right? When in the first place, you were not told about the responsibility that you have to uphold. Then we move on to who has the decision rights, right? So in this sense, a lot of times, I'm sure you have heard of it, if you're an IT auditor, when you do your typical ITGCs or application controls, a lot of time the business auditees will say that, oh, I'm not the owner of this data, IT is the one. So then who has decision over rights? That would also be asked as during your audit of the auditees. Does it mean that if you say you're not the data owner, I can, anytime delete all this data, you're fine with it. And you will see them, scrambling and trying to tell you, no, cannot do that. So the moment they jump into the status of protecting their data, it gives them that moment of aha moment, right? To make them realize and understand that, you are the actual data owner. So you have the right to do things. And of course, once you have the right to do things, how do you empower the rest of the people to act with confidence? And those comes with, control matrix, etc., right? So what are the consequences that you have to deal with? So a lot of time, accountability always lead to ownership, because when there's no ownership, you can't, make someone take over certain action items. So these three bubbles, they relate to one another. And it is very important when you talk to your auditees or your stakeholders about how to ensure accountability is adequate enough. And with this in place, you can see that, finger pointing can be eliminated. Decisions can be much faster and better because you don't have to work through the spaghetti kind of journey to get to what you want. You can straight away go to the person and ask for a decision out of that person. And with such things being clear and transparent, you actually help the organization or your department to define culture, ethics, and behavior, because all these are good practices. And if all good practices are being upheld too, and no one will blame one another for things, you tend to go into a very cohesive and collaborative work environment, and that defines culture. Now, how can IT governance accelerate your career? Oh, definitely it can. Because first of all, we, from the IT governance perspective, as practitioner, we can see the bigger picture. We understand the bigger picture because we have access to a lot of information, and we can have the platform to deal with a lot of the senior stakeholders. And that's how, when we deliver our work, and we stand by our work because our work has to be factual, right? And supported by evidence. So they are seen as reliable, and we begin our career as being seen as a reliable business partner as well. In this case, we are a very good asset to the organization because of our work, we understand and able to navigate compliance matters. So we appreciate the sensitivity about regulations and how policies and procedures will affect the organization processes and output. We can help, regardless in which department we're in, we are able to help to identify risk because we are trained to do that. And at the same time, we also can help, our line one colleagues to enforce digital ethics as well. Now, IT governance, I put a statement there. I don't see IT governance as a purely just a tech skill. It's actually very strategic thinking and stewardship, because we are the one that shape the organization. Now, of course, it's easier said than done. We can say we want this framework. And I know in reality, it is very difficult to influence and persuade a lot of all these senior stakeholders. But we have to start somewhere. So you need to find a champion, hopefully it's your boss, who has very good communication skills to work alongside with the senior stakeholders to embrace the whole IT governance framework. Now, some of you may ask, what if you're not in a governance role, right? You're maybe in a pure IT role, but no worries, because governance is not just belonging to a department. It is a shared responsibility, just like risk management. It's everybody's responsibility. So even if you're not in a governance role, do these three things, and I'm sure you are collaborating well and exhibiting the good governance practice, right? So first of all, be proactive. Make sure you understand relevant policies and procedures better than just delivering projects. Because if you can incorporate all these risk considerations into your project implementation, the value of it will be higher and you will be recognized and acknowledged for that. Now, speaking up here refers to volunteer to report or recommend any risk gaps identified. Now, sometimes as you are the one doing it, you realize that there is a gap in that particular deliverable. Don't just sit there and keep quiet about it, because there will be consequences if not being identified early. So be the one who is proactive, at the same time volunteer to speak up, to tell your supervisors that, look, boss, there is this gap there, and there could be a potential risk that we will encounter in the future. Do you want to consider to deliberate about it upfront rather than when it happens, right? Because when it happens, it may be too late. Be active. Please participate in active audits, reviews, or policy updates. Why? Because you can be seen as embracing governance in the holistic manner. And not being defensive to audits actually made your stakeholders realize that, you understand the shared responsibility definition, and you are part of the organization, and whatever we do, we are serving in the interest of the organization. That is the kind of message that you need to give it out to your stakeholders if you are not currently in the governance role. Now, if you're in the governance role, all the more easier. But when you are on the flip side in governance role, I will say that please practice communication, because a lot of times I do see a lot of peers in this space. They do good work, but never being recognized because they kept quiet, right? So when you are too quiet, nobody raise hand to take the credit of the work that you have done. Other people will take the credit for it, okay? Now, a culture of trust and growth. So early on, we touched about trust, which is required and earns through transparency. And we also spoke about accountability. We all know accountability drives performance. Now, if you have trust and accountability together, it will help build a good culture through governance. Because why? Governance is our competitive advantage. And remember, governance is not here to add on layers of things. We don't do that. Actually, if practiced right, governance is a smarter way and is a better way to say yes to things. Why? Because we have considered all rounds of risk considerations. And when we support it, the risk, it's probably will be lower than it should be. So actually, if we can communicate these principles as well as the act of interest of the organization well to your senior stakeholders, I believe this will be a very good role to be in, and you enjoy the role very much. Now, where are the opportunities? There are a lot of opportunities in IT governance role. As you can see on the screen, covers from compliance to auditing, to risk consulting, to privacy management, or purely governance analyst and manager. Now, the key difference here is the slightly different specialization and focus of them, but in general, you belong to the governance book of careers. Some people are very good at writing and interpreting policies and procedures. Then it will be very good that you work in the GRC area or the pure IT governance policy area. But some people are very good with technical side of things, so you may have to move on beyond governance, and that is the execution part on the cybersecurity side of things. So reflect upon what career that you want based on the skill set that you demonstrate without much effort. Now, a lot of times I have people asking me, how do I know where are my strengths, right? So my question is always very straightforward. You ask yourself, which area of work or which area of studies that you have gone through it, you don't have to put in much effort, and always the results is good or better than the other things. Now, that naturally tells you that's where your strength is. Yeah, because you don't have to put effort and you're already good in it. But human nature, we always like to compare with the rest. So I want to do better than the rest or showcase that I can also do that. So that's why you may have overlooked your own strength and trying to acquire other skill set. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just that it will take a longer time perhaps for you to reach there because you did not capitalize on your existing strength that you don't even need to put effort into. Lastly, I just wanted to bring back this whole topic back to the platform that we are in today. It's about SheLeadsTech, right? So why empowering women is really important. This statistics is taken out of the SheLeadsTech Tech Workplace survey. So on the top left corner, you get to see that these are the top challenges for women when they pursue the IT career. As you can see from the chart, the biggest statistics show that 42% of women feel that needing technical knowledge stop them from getting into the IT career. So it could mean that women naturally don't quite like technical technical matters. And also, I think there is a misconception about IT or about technology needing all the technical knowledge. Because early on, I did mention governance related matters. A pure governance role requires somebody with very good communication, written skills, able to develop policies and procedures, able to persuade people to implement policies and procedures. Those doesn't require technical skills, doesn't require coding skills. So I think for any of the women on this platform, I would encourage you to talk to any other people to find out whether is this the case. In Singapore, I just like to share with you, in Singapore, we have a portion of the women always thinking the same. So that means they thought that, okay, if I want to get into tech role, I must be technically sound, right? I need to code, I need to program, I need to deal with hardware devices. I think these are misconception about what tech roles can, because there are so many different types of roles available nowadays. And each role requires different skill set, and not all roles require technical knowledge, okay? So this is just to set the foundation there, as in, why I think women needs to rethink about the challenges to get into the IT career. And of course, on the right-hand side, you see the two bubbles. You know, is there any bias at work when we pursue IT career? Surprisingly, it's 27% female and 4% male. Maybe not surprising for the males because it's a male dominant industry anyway. Yeah, but I must give credit to the 4% males who may be able to observe that there are actually stereotyping and diversity biasness in their workplace. But at the 27%, it means we have not done enough to remove people from their biasness, as well as how they see this whole industry, that it should be still male dominant and not female. Now, lastly, just wanted to end with there are always benefits of empowering women in tech. First of all, definitely, when there are diversity, what we think, how we create ideas, how we make decisions, we have a holistic consideration, because females see things differently, males see things differently. When we come together, it's not short of ideas and perhaps a better sounding board to arrive at a better decision. And of course, the report from McKinsey also tell us that companies with good diversity index perform better. So all in all, I don't see any disadvantages of having women on board your organization. So I do encourage a lot more women to step up and step out of their comfort zone. And just to share just one example, in Singapore, earlier on, I think Wendy mentioned about the conversion program that I have developed. In that program, I help homemakers, people who, for the sake of their family, with young kids, maybe let's say 10, 20 years ago, they gave up their jobs. So they become homemakers. Now, the kids grown up, they wanted to come back to society, and then they realized that they lost the 10 to 20 years of skill set, right, to come back to the society. So what my program did was I helped them to get into a training that I've designed to teach them about all these technology, basic skills, the risk management skills, etc. And then I put them into organizations who are willing to take them in as, cybersecurity risk professionals and all those. So I have been very successful in my program conversion. So this is something that I've contributed back to the society and the community. So there are ways to help women get into that. And after 3 years, I still have quite a high percentage of them still staying in the organization. So it is a success story to be shared with everyone. So that's all from me. If you'd like to, be connected with me, scan this QR code, and can you just put a remark saying that it's the 7th August webinar, because I don't usually accept all invitation. Yeah. So if you want to get connected with me after this session, just mention about this 7th August webinar, and I will sure admit you to become one of my friends in the circle. Thank you. That's all from me. Back to you, Rwandi.
Thank you, Jenny, for that powerful presentation. I think the participants were able to gather a lot of insights from your presentation with regard to IT governance and how we have to approach. So I invite participants to ask a few questions if you have anything from Jenny now. So until participants come up with a few questions, Jenny, I was kind of interested in some of the areas that you were discussing. How do you see what kind of real life examples, if you can share a few with us, on how lack of governance has impacted the companies in different industries? If you could share a couple of examples, I think it would be beneficial for the participants.
Yeah, sure. That's why earlier on I did mention that IT governance is always undermined. So it's always not being given the limelight. But actually, if you look at all the failed cases, like for instance, the common ones would be Enron, if you can still remember. Yeah, so the Enron actually is in the retail and accounting space that they didn't do well from governance perspective. There were fraud as well as weak board independence, and led to the bankruptcy as well as the auditor collapse. Yeah, so that incident or that example is a very clear cut on very weak governance. Yeah, but when things happen, nobody gave the word a thought at all. Yeah, they just blame it on the auditors not able to find out all these things and there were fraud. That's about it, right? So nobody tied that to governance. Another one that I would say that people may have forgotten is about the BP oil spill, if you can remember. Yeah, so the oil spill into the sea, right? So maybe you would think that, hey, why would that be a governance matter? Of course, there is a governance matter. But then again, nobody related back to governance again. They just blame it to, oh, it's an environmental disaster that happened at the point in time. Yeah. But actually, if you look back now, it is about safety governance not being adhered to, right? They neglected all the risk indicators, telling them to be careful about it, but they didn't follow through. So that is actually also another case of governance failure. One more example could be the one that I think Facebook had it. Yeah, some data governance privacy breaches, I think, yeah, sometimes back, where a lot of personal information were being leaked out, and they will find quite a lot of $1 million. So those are more into the data governance failure. So I mean, governance is a very big word, but it encompasses many sectors, many coverage style of things. So
Yeah,
hope
I
that
agree
one
with
gives you
you.
some
Yeah, because
flavor.
there were quite a number of data governance issues and IT breaches that we came across recently. And like you said, most of the time it was parked on the auditors. But then again, everyone is part of it. Like everyone is responsible, like you were saying, not only the IT teams, but it cascades down to the operations and then the accounting stuff and practically everyone. Yeah. How do you see like a multinational organization who maintain consistent data governance around ownership, retention, and ethical usage while navigating different privacy laws and cultural expectations? How do you see that being rolled out?
I think this one definitely, I would say, um, equipping the skills and knowledge to the people involved first. I think that would be very important. Yeah. Other than that, I think everyone knows that as a risk professional, I'm sure we know what we need to do ourselves in that task. But from a bigger picture, from an organization perspective, I would say that you need to make sure that everybody is on the same page, right? So there must be certain mindset shift. You need to be creative, innovative, and curious about what's going to happen. You need to anticipate things to happen, and don't just react. We have to respond. So a lot of all these would come into the picture to ensure the organization can be robust enough. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Um, so I think there are no questions from the audience today.
So quiet.
I, I have two questions for you, Jenny. How do you manage IT risk and compliance when governance structures must cater to multiple countries if there is like a unique risk landscape, because some of the multinationals may want to hear about this from you, because there are quite a number of companies that we deal with every day who are spread across the globe.
Yeah, I can understand if any of you work in multinational companies, because my own current company is also considered multinational. We are spread across almost 50 countries, more than 200 cities. Oh, I can imagine the kind of stress that every one of you is going through. But I think the important thing is going back to what is your business strategic objectives first, you see. So if, let's say, the whole business strategy is about having a global framework, local execution, then go ahead with it. I don't see why IT has to be really different unless your infrastructure is really set up very differently. But usually, if, let's say, for MNCs, they do have either a regional hub or the HQ. So that will mean that there is some form of centralization versus decentralization. So in that sense, you can still adopt the global framework, local execution kind of strategy. And what this means is when we say global framework, you need to ensure that you have one core set of policies. And that is the baseline of how things work. But then when it gets rolled down to the various countries, various offices, you need to make sure that the local office has a right to put in, let's say, an addendum on things that is relevant to their local needs, because every country has different regulations that you have to fulfill, right? So you cannot be one size fits all. The thing is to make sure that there are consistency in carrying out all these policies on the local level, and there needs to be compliance review, because if there is no compliance review, the saying goes that if you don't inspect, right, you can't measure, right? Yeah. So these are things that you really need to keep track of. The other thing I need to I would say guide the attendees here could be to ensure that you keep a regulatory mapping, because earlier on I did mention why certain policies has to be adapted locally is because of the local regulations. But then you cannot just leave it to the local people to just do as they wish. So at the control level, that means at the HQ level, I would suggest a regulatory inventory, and then you do your mapping carefully so that you have oversight over how the local offices is carrying out all these, and to ensure that the risk is visible for better control, better management. Another tip could be, I would say, role-based accountability, because if the local office is not aware that they are responsible for certain things, then when things happen, who will bear it, right? So if the HQ, on the other hand, doesn't allow the local people to have local accountability, then when things happen, who's going to bear it, right? So these are very real things. So we have to make sure that we find owners for everything that is being rolled out, so as to avoid gaps, avoid duplication of work, avoid finger pointing, blame, those blaming games. Yeah, so we should avoid that. Lastly, I would suggest, there are many things that we can think about, but I would say the first three would be quite important and critical. The last one, definitely, I think having good and relevant KPIs drive behavior again, because if your KPIs are not relevant, sometimes human being, we just chase after the KPI, and then you forget about everything else, right? And becomes very transactional again. So if we want to encourage the local offices to have a certain type of behavior, then you need to have a certain type of KPIs. And we need to also be mindful, if you are bosses here, KPIs in tech contexts cannot be something that you have no control over. So every time I went out to speak to a lot of other people, especially the security office, the CISOs, right? They were given KPIs on, let's say, number of incidents received. Incidents are external, right? You have no control over. But why am I being penalized for somebody trying to attack us, right? Yeah. So I think we need to make sure that whatever that we are doing, it has to be relevant in that context.
Okay.
Hopefully it
So
helps.
one last question. I think we have covered most of it. How would you think that someone can build their careers through grabbing opportunities in the job market, especially relating to not only IT governance, but if you take it overall, if you can just give one last remark.
I think join ISACA. Really, yeah. It's not about promoting our platform. I mean, there are other associations that anyone can join, but the fact that I think if you want to get a good career out of it, you really need to, first of all, mix with the right group of people. Yeah. So if your career choice is to be a CISO or to be a CIO, I think you have to join a tech-related association, for example, ISACA. And the good thing is, when you come into such a platform, you network with like-minded people, you learn from them equally, and sooner or later, you make yourself very comfortable in speaking of, our tech lingo, and it helps you to learn very fast. At the same time, may help you to establish what it is all about in this side of the career. I think that is step one. The other part is definitely you have to make sure you demonstrated the few behavior that I mentioned early on, the three bubbles about being active, being able to speak up. Yeah. So making sure that even if currently you're not in a governance role or governance related role, you need to demonstrate that you embrace it, because when people see that you are walking the talk, when there is opportunity, they will be extending it to you. So I think these two, in addition to, of course, getting a good recruiter for you, but then a recruiter is a recruiter. It's only one channel. There are many building blocks that you have to put in place in order to achieve the ultimate desired outcome that you wish to get.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for that insightful session. And so, on behalf of ISACA Chapter and SheLeadsTech and all the participants here, I would like to thank you, Jenny, for taking time. I know with the time differences, you agreed at the very first instance. Thank you very much. Just 2.5 hours away from us. It's like must be really towards the night for you there. But thanks for taking time and sharing some of the insights, and for this insightful and empowering session on this empowering women in tech, the role of IT governance in building trust, accountability, and career growth. So thank you for being a catalyst for change and a voice of encouragement for all those who participated today. And also, I would like to invite everyone for our third session that would be held on the 20th of August. That will not be on the 21st, but on the 20th of August, where we will be discussing from knowledge to leadership, how ISACA certifications, like what Jenny mentioned a while ago, elevate your IT career. So I would like to invite all of you, and thank you very much, Jenny. Thank you everyone for participating in the second webinar today, and I will hope to see you in the third session. So good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.